that there's a whole nother level of data being collected on people. Some of that will come out in this case.
Have y'all not wondered what Steve Gonzalez was talking about when he gave this interview? And are you not concerned that this whole new level of data being collected on everybody and used in police investigations is a violation of our privacy as American citizens? And for those of you who think simply not breaking the law makes you safe from anything like this happening, you would be absolutely incorrect. And all you individuals who use a VPN need to stick around for a minute. And if an open conversation is something you prefer, then this is the place for you. Welcome to The Point, so let's talk about it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Now, Steve Gonzalez alluded to a level of data collection that is being used in this particular investigation that a lot of state and local agencies may not necessarily be aware of. But what is he talking about here, and what is the problem with all this? Some of it stems from an article I read on the Washington Post a couple months ago, and I'll read it for you right here. Novel ways of using Google's data are helping police investigations, but privacy advocates say it's violating Americans' constitutional rights. If you happen to be multiple blocks away from a bank robbery, the police could find out and question you. If you searched online for a particular street address, the name of a crime victim, or maybe a drug, cops might find out about that too. How? From Google, the repository of our curiosities, whereabouts, and secrets. A recent court ruling in Colorado highlighted how Google's tracking of our locations and web searches helps police find suspects when they have few leads. But it's also sweeping innocent people into investigations. Google says it has procedures to protect the privacy of our users while supporting the important work of law enforcement. But defense attorneys and civil liberties advocates say Google is a gold mine for novel police methods that they call unconstitutional fishing expeditions. The advocates say Google must collect and save less of our data to avoid potential misuse. Even if you believe you have nothing to hide from law enforcement, relentless digital tracking of Americans risks our information falling into criminals' hands too. In 2020, Denver police officials with a warrant demanded that Google hand over information on anyone who has looked up the home address where a suspected arson passed away 5 people. Prosecutors said people's Google search histories were essential leads to help identify suspects they charged with the passing. One person searched the address 14 times in the days before the arson, prosecutors said. But police also obtained Google search histories from several people who weren't connected to the crime but also looked up that address or similar ones. A majority of judges on Colorado's top court recently ruled that the Denver arson warrant was legal given the particular circumstances. The Colorado court and others haven't ruled whether the type of broad warrant for anyone's web searches complies with constitutional protections for free speech and against unreasonable government searches. No one knows how often these search term warrants are used, but legal experts say they're probably unusual. More common is a similar type of warrant for Google records on anyone the company believes was near a crime. In one case in Florida a few years ago, a man said he rode his bicycle near the location of a home burglary. The police investigated him after they obtained data on all devices that Google recorded near the home around the time of the burglary. In a statement, Google said the broad search term and location warrants pose particular privacy risks. Google said in roughly the past 18 months, the company has successfully objected to more than 2,000 large-scale location warrants as unconstitutional. Law enforcement officials say that Google's data on people's locations and search histories help solve crimes, including the 2021 Capitol riot, and that innocent people are protected. As you heard, investigators are now using your location history and your search history to help identify potential suspects in crimes where they may not have a suspect or they may not have a lot of evidence. And does this not give you the impression that this was one of the main tools used by investigative authorities to identify Brian Kohlberger? The problem with this particular investigative technique has really nothing to do with whether we're breaking the law or not. Whether you're a citizen here or you're a citizen in another country, your privacy and your rights are yours. They are not for anybody to blanket submit just because you happen to walk by a particular address or search for a particular phrase. And should we not all be concerned that there is a level of data being stored to include personal interests, travel history, location history, all kept in a singular location that can be gathered by hackers and sold on the black market and used against you? Imagine this scenario where somebody has bought your personal information. They now know your address, they know your travel habits, they know when you leave from work, when you come home, and when you go to bed. And they can use this data to plan to maybe break into your home. The fact remains, if it can be made available for investigative authorities, would it not be readily available for anybody who wants to use it illegally? Now, privacy advocates are fighting hard against this type of blanket warrant search because it is pulling people in to investigations who have no reason being investigated. Just like that article said, if you happen to be walking by a particular location or searching online a similar address, that can now inadvertently pull you into an investigation that you want no part of and you had no hand in. The whole premise of illegal searches and seizures was built on that foundation. Now, it should be perfectly okay for investigative authorities who have enough to identify a potential witness, submit that name to Google or one of the many other providers out there and gather information on them. But it should not be okay for them to just blanket submit any and all people who happen to be in a particular area at a particular time and start rooting through various things that they have looked up online. And do we not all have this notion that if you use a VPN, a lot of your personal data is being stored and kept secret and hidden from a lot of these big tech companies? The fact remains, a lot of these companies that offer that service store that same type of data. Now, we were told at one point in time our data was being stored because it would better help us understand traffic patterns and we could better identify what restaurants would be busy at this particular time versus another. And of course, they use it to market to you, the individual user. But to say they're now storing all this long term and it is being used against us in a court of law, even though we had no business being investigated to begin with, should concern a whole lot of people. Have we all not noticed year after year, it seems like more and more of our own personal rights and civil rights are slowly being whittled away? The notion every single election cycle is if we elect this person or we vote for that person, that they're going to just blanket swipe away your right to a firearm or they're going to prevent your right for some kind of medical procedure. It's absolutely ridiculous. These individuals aren't blanket cutting away our own personal and civil rights. They're doing it little by little. And they're wrapping it up under this package of safety and protection for the American citizen or whatever country you reside in. Now, the thing that is making it scary is there is nobody who has said this is unconstitutional, that this is a violation of our rights as citizens. In fact, as the article said, there was a blanket warrant issued for that arson case. It was granted, and the Supreme Court in that state said it was absolutely allowed because of those particular circumstances. That sets a premise here. And now because they have said under certain terms and conditions these things should be allowed, other states are now going to use those particular guidelines to submit other warrants. And they're going to involve the personal information and details of a whole lot of people. And I'm sure a lot of y'all were already under the notion that yes, there were certain things about our personal data that was being stored and used to market to us. But I would be very curious if any of y'all were aware that this level of data collection was going on And it seems like now, instead of anything you say and do can be used against you, everywhere you've went and anything you've looked up can and will be used against you. And if we as people don't start to set boundaries and raise these questions, by next year, who knows what other personal or civil right they may be attempting to take away from us under the guise of safety. If you see any of this differently, you can let me know down in the comments below. But that was a very scary statement. I understand what he is trying to say because of what has happened to his own daughter. But in terms of the rest of us who have not committed any crimes and have no intention of committing any crimes, it should scare the hell out of a lot of people that somebody could hack into a system and then absolutely know anything and everything about us. As always, if you see anything differently, you can feel free to disagree on this channel. If you have anything to add to the conversation, let me know down below. Other than that, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. Y'all stay safe. I'll catch you in the next one.